I hit go live, which I think we all know could mean anything. It also used to be like two screens. I'd have to put something in the first screen and then I'd have to go answer a question or two on the second screen. And now I appear to be live, which is lovely. Hello and welcome to Tea and New Book Tuesday. Okay, we can start off by going over the big red tomato elephant in the room. I tried out a new skincare routine and my face has become a little bit sensitive because of it. So I could not put on makeup this morning. So you get to see me in all my bare-faced, shiny red glory. Hopefully it will not be too distracting. I forgot to bring up Canva. That's okay. Because you know what? The first part of the show has become bigger and bigger and has gotten to where I really like it. And I think you guys like it too. So we're going to start off with the giveaway. After I have a sip of tea. Today's tea is Republic of Tea's vanilla almond or almond vanilla. It's my mother's favorite, so I stole a couple of hers and I've been drinking them this morning. It's a classic. It's fantastic. I needed the caffeine. Okay, so if you haven't watched in a few weeks, here's the rundown of how I'm doing the giveaway today. Today's Tea and New Book Tuesday is actually going to be about July's hottest titles. So the stuff that I suspect is going to be on the new book flyer. It's probably going to have a lot of holds on it as soon as it comes out that you'll need to know about first and foremost. Since there's a lot of fiction to cover there, I didn't include any nonfiction. Also, the nonfiction this coming in July, I haven't seen anything that's like dazzled me. I think I'm just getting jaded, maybe, or maybe they just don't release the interesting nonfiction in the summer, which is possible. But I do love nonfiction. I think some of you do too. So a lot of today's giveaway is going to be nonfiction. And the way we've been doing the giveaway the past few weeks is I give you a profile of the books that I have to give away. And whoever claims that one book in the comments with also your MPL location for pickup, the first person to put it in the comments is the one who gets the book. So you can only claim one book. I absolutely have to have your MPL location for pickup so that I know where to send the book. This does favor people who watch live versus who watch taped, but after around noon or 1 o'clock today, I'll give away the first run of books, whatever was claimed for the people who watched it live, and I'll put in the description what's left, and you'll have until Friday morning to say, I want one of those if you're watching it as a recording between now and Friday. Okay, does that make sense? Are we together? Are we okay? Okay, let's move on. Let's start with the only fiction book that I'm giving away today. This is coming out on June 8th. It's called The Missing Treasures of Amy Ashton by Eleanor. It sounds like a really nice novel. It's a debut. It's a first novel by this author. And it's about Amy, who wanted to be an artist, but ended up being a collector of many things. She suffered a terrible tragedy, and because of it, she doesn't really want to think about it. And because of it, she started covering every inch of her home in colored glass bottles, beautiful crockery, and things, because things never fail you, people do. Then a new family moves in next door, and they have a son who, like her, is a collector. This is described as quirky and charming, big-hearted and moving. The Missing Treasures of Amy Ashton proves that it's never too late to let go of the things that don't matter and welcome the people who do, which I thought sounded so lovely. So yes, if you want The Missing Treasures of Amy Ashton, put that title in the comments with your MPL location for pickup. Moving on to the nonfiction. Okay. So I don't even know if I have very many notes on this because I'm concerned I'm going to go on and on about it, but Of Bears and Ballots, An Alaskan Adventure in Small Town Politics by Heather Lend. Lend is a writer who lives in Haines, Alaska. She decided after 2016 to become more involved in local politics, so she ran for the city assembly and won. And she's talking about her community and what serving her community in this fashion is like, particularly because her community is fairly unique. And the thing that drew me to this is that my family's actually from Alaska. And Haines is near where my grandmother lives. My grandmother's in Sitka, which is part of the Inside Passage, this sort of run of peninsulas and islands that's still part of Alaska, but is like neighboring Canada and the ocean. Sitka faces the ocean. Haines is another island in. And the weird thing about this geography is that the only way you can get to these communities is by air or by water. You can't drive there. When I go see my grandmother, I have to fly to a different island, and the runway is a third the size of a normal runway. It is this abrupt stop when you land. And then there's a bridge between the island with the airport and Baranof Island, which is where Sitka is. So then you get in a car and you drive over the bridge and you get there. So she's dealing, the stuff that Len is talking about in this book is stuff I've heard my family talk about over the years. Things like, how do you deal with bears coming down from the mountains and getting in people's trash? Which sounds like a Paddington Bear story, but is, I promise you, very much not. And bears are massive. They are dangerous. And once they know where food is, they're not going to stop going to that place. Before, my last visit to Alaska was like 10 years ago. It's been a while. Because it's a long and expensive trip to get there. But they had just figured out a few years prior to that a solution to the bear situation, which they may not be able to do anymore because it varies. But the solution was, if a bear came down into the village and found trash cans, you have to kill the bear. Because, again, they're never not going to remember that food's there. And they know geography better than we do, so you can't just like confuse them and put them somewhere else on the island. It doesn't work. They're going to be a danger to the human population from that moment on. But right before I got there, they were all excited, or my relatives and people in town were all excited because they had figured out that they could just helicopter the bear out and give it to a zoo. And so that was the solution. They're like, here, does the zoo want a bear? We got one that's about to kill somebody, so take it and go. So yeah, she's going to describe in this book things like how beautiful Haines is, which, again, my father grew up in Alaska. My grandmother's Alaskan. It's ridiculous what it looks like when you're there. But if you ever found that fascinating, or if you're interested in local politics and what that would be like in a small town, then you might want Of Bears and Ballots. Okay. This one, The Boston Massacre, A Family History. This I found interesting because she's looking at the Boston Massacre a little bit differently. For those of us who don't remember history class, the Boston Massacre is when the British troops killed 5 unarmed men in Boston in public. And that was one of the events that sparked the revolution to genuinely get going and to become, I think, more violent, ultimately turning it into war. This author is addressing the history of what was going on before that, because she's essentially arguing there was more to this situation than simply the colonists were restless, the British were trying to oppress us, so this erupted in these 5 men being shot and the beginning of the war. All of those things are true, but the British troops who were sent here were sent with their families, which I did not know, and I think is interesting. And they lived in the community. These were families that lived near each other, that often baptized their children in the same, like, church. They would go looking for lost kids, again, in their area. They were neighbors. She believes that part of this event was somewhat personal in addition to being political. So if you're interested in the history of the American Revolution, this one might be a good one. So that was the Boston Massacre. This I like the title of. What would you do if you weren't afraid? Subtitle is Discovering a Life Filled with Purpose and Joy Through the Secrets of Jewish Wisdom. Very much a self-help book, very much a motivational sort of a thing. It's by she has the fakest sounding jobs, but she's a motivational speaker, so it's always going to kind of sound like that. She was the head of culture at TikTok Europe, whatever that means. But I looked over the reviews on Goodreads, and people were saying, she does a decent job of explaining this sort of ancient Jewish wisdom and how you can apply it to your life, which, I mean, that can make it fascinating on a couple of different realms. So that's What Would You Do If You Weren't Afraid? This one is a biography, John Mclean's Home Waters, A Chronicle of Family and a River. Mclean's father wrote A River Runs Through It, and their family has been in that part of Montana for like 4 generations. So this is about his family's life in that part of the country, about fishing, about the real characters the real people who inspired characters from A River Runs Through It. If you like that novel, you might be interested in this. That's Home Waters. Okay. Girl Decoded, a scientist's quest to reclaim our humanity by bringing emotional intelligence to technology. This is more of an autobiography, I think, than a sciencey tech thing, although she's definitely going to go in the sciencey tech stuff. And to be honest, I don't understand what she does. But she grew up in Egypt and Kuwait. She was educated at Cambridge, and she now runs a company here. And based on what little I've read about her, I think she's had a relatively fascinating life. So I think that part of it might be interesting. But that's A Girl Decoded. And this last one is an actual, the rest of them are ARCs. They're the advanced reader copies sent to libraries. This is an actual copy of the book. The Calcium Connection, the little known enzyme at the root of cellular health, by Brund Brody. Brody's son from infancy into childhood had a lot of mysterious medical problems that the doctors couldn't explain. So she started digging in and trying to understand the scientific research and trying to understand what was going on. And one of the things she found was that this enzyme, calcium ATPase, it's calcium, capital A, capital T, capital P, ASE. Not sure I'm supposed to pronounce that, but she believes it's at the root of a lot of health problems, including inflammation. And she studied what you need to do in order to improve that. It's very much a wellness book. And because of that, I was trying to give this a little more scrutiny, because there's a lot of wellness stuff that is starting to feel really snake oil. They're always selling you something. That's the problem I have with it. Like, trying to look at health from a different perspective is always a good idea, but also selling people thousands of dollars of things that are the only thing that can make them healthy, and you're the only one who can supply it. She's not selling anything other than the book, which is why I'm willing to give it away and not gonna hide it somewhere and pretend it doesn't exist. Although, fair warning, she does apparently give some concrete advice, and I think you're going to recognize all of it, because a lot of it seems to be, you should exercise and you should eat vegetables. Which, I mean, I knew that before she wrote this book. The book is not the thing that's holding me back from doing it. It's just kind of inconvenient. So yeah, if you want any of these books, put the title and your preferred MPL location for pickup in the comments below. All right. Let's go ahead and get on with our main show. Let's get into the fiction titles that have been pre-ordered from Mobile Public Library for July. And more specifically, the ones that I think are going to be big hits. So let me share my screen with you so you can see the covers, and slightly less of my big red face. Let's move this down. Hit present. Maybe. Will you let me present? Thank you. Okay. Got it there. I think we're gonna skip some of these early slides. Yes, because we already know about the giveaway. I'm still reading one last stop. I'm working on it. Okay. I said nonfiction, and then there is no nonfiction. Let's move on. Okay, starting with The Stranger in the Mirror by Liv Constantine. She's a popular author. I think almost everybody we're talking about today is a bestseller. So this is about Addison. She's about to get married. She should be happy. She does love her fiance. That's not the problem. The problem is she doesn't know who she is. And it's not that she doesn't know who she is in like a I have to go find myself kind of way. She literally doesn't know who she is. A couple years ago, she was found on the side of the road, bleeding, injured, and with no memory of her life before that moment. She never recovered her memory. She still doesn't know what happened. And for some reason, she feels really guilty. She thinks she did something bad. Meanwhile, Julian has been looking for his wife for 2 years. She never would have left him and their daughter willingly, as far as he can think. This book was described as having humor, glamour, and jaw-dropping twists, which is an interesting combination. The early readers gave this one a rating of 3.88 stars on Goodreads, and as you can see with this little symbol here, we are also getting it on audio. If you're interested in The Stranger in the Mirror by Liv Constantine, it comes out July 6th. All right, let's move on to 9 Lives by Danielle Steele. I do not need to introduce Danielle Steele. I think you know who she is. But Mary Margaret lost her daredevil father when she was 9. He died when she was 9. And she decided at that point, no more daredevil-y type men, because this is how this is going to end. She had a moment where she questioned this when she was in high school, and she fell in love with a kind of wild boy. But she righted herself. She stopped doing that, stopped seeing him. And then eventually she found a dependable partner in a very conventional suburban life. And then tragedy struck. She found herself alone. So Mary Margaret decided to finally embrace her adventurous side that she inherited from her father and go traveling around the world. Naturally, she runs into her wild high school boyfriend, now an adult, and sparks fly. So the pitch line is, can she walk the tightrope between danger and courage, between wisdom and love? We are also buying this on audio. If you're interested in 9 Lives by Danielle Steele, it comes out July 6th. I've told you before, every month has a ridiculous date where everything is coming out on that date. In July, it's the 6th. Okay, False Witness by Karen Slaughter. So we have yet another woman who has created a reliable, comfortable, unremarkable life for herself. In Lee's case, she's become a defense attorney. She's raising a daughter with her ex, whom she has a good relationship with. But one of the reasons she's deliberately leading this unremarkable life is because of something that happened 20 years ago that she's been running from ever since. Then she lands a rape case. If she can get the wealthy man acquitted who's been charged, it could transform her career. But it turns out he chose her for the case, and he seems to know her and know something about what happened 20 years ago. So now she needs to win the case because more than her career is at stake. We are also getting this one on audio. If you are interested in False Witness by Karen Slaughter, it comes out July 20th. All right. The Women's March, a novel of the 1913 women's suffrage procession by Jennifer Chavarrini. Yet another very popular author. This book is inspired by true events, actual stuff that happened, and has, as best I can tell, some fictional characters and some fictionalized versions of real people. We get the perspective of several different women who are headed to the procession, including Ida B. Wells, a suffragette librarian, and a woman who fought for voting rights in Britain only to arrive in America and begin the fight anew. They're going to do their procession or their march the day before the inauguration of the new president, which I think is Woodrow Wilson. The police have not bothered to take care of them very well, and they will be met with what we would consider counter protesters, but is in fact vast crowds of belligerent men there to harass them and potentially harm them. And so that altercation should be interesting. If you are interested in the Women's March, it comes out July 27th. All right, An Ambush of Widows. I really kind of like that title. And I don't know what else you would call this book, but the plot does look interesting to me. So Kristen's husband didn't return home from a business trip. Naturally, she's worried. She then gets a phone call that says, your husband is dead in Texas. She investigates and finds out this is true. He was killed violently in a warehouse she's never heard of in Austin, Texas, a place he had no reason to be, with another man whom she also has no idea who it is. Meanwhile, Flora knew that her husband was keeping secrets, but she thought he was having an affair. An affair doesn't explain how he ended up dead in that warehouse in Texas, because he also has no reason to be in either that warehouse or in Austin. And so far as she knows he didn't know Kristen's husband. The two widows decide to find each other and realize that they need to work together to find answers. But the problem is they're both keeping secrets, and they're facing down a powerful foe who wants to write a false narrative about the murders. If you're interested in Ambush of Widows, we are also getting it on audio, and it comes out July 6th. Okay. Such a Quiet Place by Megan Miranda. Hollow's Edge was an idyllic community until a husband and wife, the Truitts, were murdered. The residents of Hollow's Edge decided, I don't know, basically, they decided one of their own had done it, a woman named Ruby, and a lot of them testified at her trial. But a year and a half later, the Truitt's house is still standing empty. The other residents aren't able to sell their homes and move on. There's a sort of like dark cloud sitting over the town, and Ruby's conviction is overturned. So she comes home. And she's now dealing with the neighbors who testified against her, and the very real possibility that it's clear someone lied during the trial. So the killer is still among them. If you're interested in Such a Quiet Place, it got a starred review from Booklist, and it comes out July 13th. All right, It's Better This Way by Debbie Mccomber. Debbie Mccomber is another one I don't even remotely have to explain to you who she is, because I'm sure you already know. So Julia's husband broke her heart. 6 years ago, he became involved with another woman, which led to their divorce and his remarriage. Julia's daughters stand by her, and she has spent the last years carving out a life for herself, one that she's pretty happy with. But her sister has tried to get her to date. It's been kind of a disaster. And she's ultimately decided it's better this way, me without men. Then she meets a handsome divorcee with adult children of his own. Romance shall ensue. This got a Publisher's Weekly starred review. If you're interested in It's Better This Way, it comes out July 13th. All right. Do I have? I think I've got an arc of this. It's a digital one though, so I don't have it to give away. But I think I might read this next. I'm not sure. The Final Support Group by Grady Hendrix. Grady Hendrix wrote the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, which was really popular a couple of years ago. The Final Girl, if you don't know, then I think you might not read horror, this is horror. Although I feel like, maybe I'm thinking of Riley Sager. I was gonna say, I think Grady Hendrix is a nice segue into horror from mystery, but I'm actually thinking of a different author. So never mind. For those of you who don't know, a final girl in a horror movie is the one who survives. She's usually the one that defeats the monster, avenges her friends, and is in those final frames of the film bloody but victorious. Several novels and films lately, and this is just true. This is just me talking. There's been a lot of stuff readdressing the final girl and what happens to her after the credits roll. Like, what's that like? The 2018 Halloween is very much about Laurie Strode, who is the final girl from the original Halloween film, played by Jamie Lee Curtis. It's about her PTSD, essentially, from dealing with him and how that affected her and her relationship with her daughter and her relationship with her granddaughter, which is part of why that movie was so good. But, and I think Riley Sanger has a book that's a final girl, which is part of why that I was thinking of that when I was talking about this earlier. But this is another one of those pieces that's addressing that. In this story, Lynette survived a massacre over 20 years ago, and she joined a group therapy that is specifically for women who've had this kind of experience where they are the sole survivor of a mass murder. They're final girls. But yeah, the final girl support group. One of them fails to show up at their regular meeting, and they soon find their worst fears are realized. Someone knows about the group and is planning on picking them off one by one. But this killer has picked the wrong group of women. They are survivors, and they have something now that they didn't have when they barely survived before. They have each other. This got a starred review from Publishers Weekly, and again, Grady Hendrix is liked by many people. I might read this. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, if you're interested in The Final Girl, it comes out July 13th. It's got to come out on the 13th, right? Right. We have decided. Okay. Don't forget to pick one of these books. If you were the first, and all the other three that I didn't pick up, like that. I am going to pack them up and start sending them out pretty much as soon as I log off, because I'm sure some of you have already put it in the comments. I will try to get them to you ASAP. And then later on, I'll put in the description what's left. So you, the people watching later, can choose from those. Don't forget to give me your MPL location for pickup. That makes it faster. Can get it to you super fast. If you're picking up at Maine, that's where I am. Like, I'm just going to take them downstairs. So it will be like, I will send the message and then I will go downstairs and it's available to you. We have the Goodreads group. The titles that I didn't get fit in today, I'm going to make a discussion board post that has all of them, especially the ones that are like series updates, because that stuff is really popular, but I don't want to get mired down in the show and trying to explain the entire series. So I just add them to that discussion board post. I think I've already got it written, so it will probably be up before I go to lunch at noon. So that'll be up soon. And I might do another nonfiction discussion board post with some of the nonfiction that's coming in July. If you are interested, the newsletter went out at 11 o'clock. If you were not signed up, use the link below to get signed up. I will see you guys next week. Thank you for watching. Oh, and next week we're going to do yellow labels. So mystery, thriller, and suspense for July. Okay, let's stop screen sharing and get out of here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye.